According to a new poll, the Conservatives are on course for an election defeat greater than that of Sir John Major in '97.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer appears to have made headway with the electorate and looks to lead Labour to a Blair-style landslide with over 400 seats.
Well, Charlie and Matthew are still with us. Charlie, this is not good news for you.
I don't know what you mean. This is just another poll, and we're seeing lots of polls.
Are you going to
out.
say, like the Prime Minister, we don't look at or listen to polls?
Well, I think they probably do look at them, but I think they have obviously an understanding that the only poll that matters is the one when the general election's called. The polls have been wrong before. I don't think the public are that exercised about politics at the moment. It's not fashionable, obviously, to say that you might be voting Conservative, but I think when people get into the ballot box, when there's actually a choice to be had, when manifestos are published, when the campaign gets underway, when you look at maybe a bright, brisk, smiling Rishi Sunak, who's quite tech-savvy, likes to wear a hoodie, who's young, ambitious, got the energy and the drive to lead this country versus, what Boris Johnson, categorised as, Crash Rooney snooze fest Starmer. I know who I'd rather have to dinner at my table. And I think the public will have a very clear choice who they want to be Prime Minister.
In the current climate, do you feel proud to be a Conservative, or do you feel embarrassed?
I don't feel either of those things. I feel annoyed that because I know the party can do better than this, and I know there's lots of talent in the Conservative Party. There's lots of talent on the Tory front benches. The internal party politics that's taken place over the last few years has been embarrassing. That has been embarrassing, and the party has looked inward. It hasn't focused on the priorities, or hasn't been able to articulate the priorities for the country. It's been getting on with the job in the background, but the public have seen an internal party warfare for far too long, which has created and allowed the narrative of a Labour Party to perhaps get ahead in these polls when nobody knows what they stand for. That is a crying shame to the public. And so I'm angry and annoyed about that. I think most Conservatives are. But that's why I think when the general election comes, every Conservative has to come together and make sure that we do away with all the internal party politics and you can actually fight the election on a policy platform that is fit for the future.
And there's potentially a long time until we actually go to the polls. Matthew, I know you're sort of itching to talk about how positive this has been for the Labour Party.
Matthew agrees with me. Matthew agrees every word that I've said. I know.
I think that the big challenge is, but as we get towards the general election, normally what happens is these polls start to narrow. And Charlie is right about the fact that we don't have a clarity of idea. If you go into the ballot box and you tick and say, right, I'm voting for my Labour Party candidate, you don't actually know at this point what policies it is that you're committing your support to.
Listening to Charlie respond to the latest polls is rather like that minister under Saddam Hussein who was saying that everything's totally fine as Baghdad was crumbling around him. I don't think, Charlie, you even believe yourself when you say some of these things. This is a catastrophic period to be a Conservative.
Let's just take a little bit of a beat back. If we remember the absolute chaos that Rishi Sunak inherited, there are some positives. I think we are quite quick to forget the immediate turbulence and that things have steadied in some way. And I'm no means here to sort of spout the Conservative point of view, but they will say the economy is slowly improving. It's not as dire as you think, and this ultimately is an opinion poll. This isn't how we've all gone to vote.
It's not just one opinion poll. We had a survey earlier in the week of 15,000 people. You're doing a valiant job there, Rosie, of trying to put the other side. But the poll earlier in the week had the Tories on 98 seats. This has them on about 150 seats.
But doesn't that show how unreliable the polls are then?
No,
if we've had two very different ones in the space of a week, published by the same newspaper.
Yeah, both catastrophic for the Conservative Party. In fact, so catastrophic that I hope it doesn't end up like that, because I think it would be bad for democracy. Yes, I want to see a Labour government, but I'd be seriously concerned if the opposition is as weak as that. We need to have a robust opposition to hold the Labour Party to account. Even more so because, actually, I don't think that these polls mean that there's any huge appetite for Keir Starmer, even though he's done, I think, a good job as leader of the Labour Party, or a huge appetite for Labour.
We've only got 30 seconds. Same question that I put to Charlie. Do you feel proud to vote Labour? Do you feel embarrassed that you have to? I'm not necessarily saying that you vote Labour, by the way, but do you think people going into the polls will be feeling as though, well, I kind of... it's just, I'm doing this with regret. I don't really necessarily want to vote Labour.
I'll almost certainly be voting Labour. I'm not sure that pride comes into it, but it would be a massive relief when we see the back of 14 years of Tory rule. By the way, I married into a Conservative family and they'll still be voting Tories, so Sunak's got a few votes.